Your sound card works perfectly.
Welcome back, everyone. An honor for me to present you Kirils. Kirils, you're up.
Thanks. Some citizens complain about being under surveillance, but they are told that if they have nothing to hide, they have nothing to fear. Still, news media regularly cover cases where citizens with unusual behavior are put on suspicion lists, even though they have broken no laws. European digital rights newsletter, Edrigram number 300, that came out in 2015, predicted this future for us in 2 years' time, in 2025. I think we've arrived there early. So I was coming into Canada for this conference, my second time here. 5 years ago, they had this amazing paper that you can fill yes/no questions on, and if you had any misunderstandings, you can talk to an officer and help them figure it out. Now, this time I was presented with something like that. And I tried to do in-person arrival check. I was told this only applies to citizens of Canada and was almost denied entry. So I had to agree to storing my photo God knows where. I'll try to do the other thing and request it later on. But the big challenge in privacy is this right here. I hope some of you can read math symbols, but I'm going to read it out loud for everyone else. So what it says is that for every person that is a criminal, it follows that that person has something to hide. The bottom line says, for every person that is hiding something, it follows that the person is a criminal. And the middle symbol on the middle line says that the first statement creates out of itself the second statement. This is, of course, not true. But in everyday life, talking to everyday people, I see this sentiment a lot. And I want to start by talking briefly on what is privacy. And then maybe we have some privacy skeptics in the room. Then I'm going to follow up by trying to convince you that privacy is important for everybody. Now, privacy is an autonomous right to choose who processes my information, how my information is processed, and what information is processed. So I might be okay with sharing my private phone number with my family, but not the government. Or I might be okay with Uber using my email address to send me receipts of my rides, but not okay with using the email address to receive advertisements. That's all part of privacy. Privacy is also the right to decide who I interact with, and that, of course, includes the right to be left alone. If I want to, I can request people to not speak to me. I should be able to. Now, for me, privacy is a feeling, which is why I created this thought experiment that I called Schrodinger's video camera, as a homage to Schrodinger's cat, of course. Imagine that you just bought this great, nice apartment somewhere in Paris. It's an amazing small apartment. And then one day, you notice that on the opposing wall over the courtyard of your bedroom, you notice there's a video camera. It suddenly appeared one morning. Now, it's one of those hidden dome video cameras. So you're not sure if there is a video camera inside indeed, or maybe it's just a deterrent. Maybe there's no video camera inside. But the feeling you get when you see the video camera appear there does not change on whether the camera is there or not. This is why I say that privacy is a feeling and privacy is important. It is uncomfortable to be watched surreptitiously. And this is what this is about. Now, here's a small video that I took off Twitter a couple years ago. Two partners, I imagine, fighting. One person took the other person's phone and is trying to unlock it using Face ID. Now, and as soon as it's managed, the person runs away. Now, to me, it's obviously a skittle, right? It looks like a joke. But some people on Twitter, as they do, took it really seriously. And I do not want to live in a world like that, right? So, what if you still say, you got nothing to hide? People come up to me and often tell me, you're a public person, you're a public individual, you're on a bunch of conferences, you speak on TV, on YouTube. How can you still postulate that you're hiding, let's say, your face, that you're not okay with Meta group companies having your face on there? Well, there are other reasons to adore and stand by privacy. Well, for example, data hoarding by large corporations and governments alike can lead both to blackmail and impersonation. As anyone in social engineering will tell you, the more info you got, the easier it is. Then there's a thing that I call herd immunity for privacy. If everyone around here will not be hiding anything, that will mean that those people that actually do have stuff to legitimately hide will automatically stand out and draw suspicion. Now, there are different countries around the world, and not all of them are as free as Canada or Latvia, where I come from. It's not okay to have certain religious beliefs, certain sexual orientations, certain political beliefs in some countries. And those people need, unfortunately, to hide that to survive. And once again, I try to help them out by being part of the solution, by trying to hide the stuff that I maybe would be okay theoretically disclosing. And of course, it's also important to keep in mind that today's government might become totalitarian or inhumane in the future. Unfortunately, nothing in this life is permanent, and we are not guaranteed to have the same regime or the same government for the duration of our lives. And we're going to give you some examples on the state of privacy around the world. Now, in Hong Kong, there were protests just before COVID started, and the Hong Kong protesters were not using their Metro cards. They had a similar system as in many large cities where you have a personalized Metro card that you can use to travel around. They were buying paper tickets with cash, and that's a photo of that, of the lines near the machines. We are afraid of having our data tracked, is what they were saying. And it's really sad and good in a way. It's sad because we are in a situation like that, but it's good because we see that people, at least some of them, are aware of the risks, right? And the so-called octopus card has been used in the past in Hong Kong for tracking different people. Now, the next slide is about London. These are real pictures from London. They say, secure beneath the watchful eyes. More CCTV means more security for you, and we're watching out for you. Those are real posters that is run by the government of United Kingdom, how they try to convince people that many cameras all around London is okay. And historically, I think London is one of the most CCTV-heavy cities in the Western world, of course. Now, in US, Uber fought back against Los Angeles trying to request that they provide live, real-time location data of their scooter. Initially, Uber complied with the request, but then filed a lawsuit in March 2020, trying to say that it's against the Fourth Amendment and is therefore constitutional. American Civil Liberties Union also filed a lawsuit. Unfortunately, lawsuits were dismissed at the beginning of 2021. So it was found that it is legal and it is proportionate to request that, even though personally I don't agree, of course. By the way, the reason behind that was, of course, that the city wanted to make sure that Uber does not rob the underrepresented people of opportunity to use scooters, namely that the scooters are available in all the regions, all the districts of Los Angeles in the same availability level. But I think that can also be achieved with non-live data. You can do it retroactively. You can take a look at yesterday's data, let's say, and see if it has been breached or not. But the courts found that that's okay. Now back to the UK, facial recognition. So a man was walking down the street and someone told him, UK police, London police are testing facial recognition here. Watch out. So what he did, he pulled his sweater over his face and walked through there. Police not only stopped him, not only forced him to show the face of the machine, but also fined him for some reason that is beyond my comprehension. Now back to Hong Kong. Hong Kong has had this anti-mask law for an extended period of time. So in protests, you were not allowed to use masks. By the way, my country, Latvia, has the same law. We've had it for tens of years. And full hearing on this started mid-January 2020. And with COVID-19, we didn't hear so much about the case. Government continued silently pushing forward, however, even though publicly it's really hard to defend do not wear masks during a pandemic. But that was their position still. Well, obviously, the government lost. I guess the global pandemic is politically a bad time to push stuff like this. But before the pandemic, slightly before the pandemic, there was an activist, Mac Pierce, that provided this solution to video cameras and facial recognition, right? You can dress like the general of a communist party somewhere, right, and look like that. Now, AI is a hot topic right now. Artificial intelligence, large language models, and I'm not going to talk about the applications, but all I have to say about privacy here is data for these models has arrived God knows from where. And the results, the output of these models are easy to access. It's either free or you can pay really not that big amount of money, like $10, and you get access to the output. So we are yet to see how it impacts all of our privacy. Of course, regulators are also filing lawsuits and trying to understand what's happening. We've seen many lawsuits filed according to GPL against Copilot on GitHub, which is also an LLM, of course, right? But it's a bit different story. But don't forget, of course, Clearview AI. This was before ChatGPT 3.5. It's a company that used artificial intelligence to create a tool that's used by law enforcement and governments all over the world that allows you to get a list of matches, list of names for a face. either online or in the real world. And of course, how they got the billions of photos is really not the best, the cleanest way, right? But they say that we agreed, which is one of the reasons why I try not to have my face on platforms owned by Meta. Now, privacy advocates, me included, have been complaining about not being able to do anything without a phone number forever. I remember when I was traveling to India some time ago, my flight, my final leg of my itinerary got cancelled, and I had no idea what to do next. There were no announcements, no one to speak to near the gate, so I had to get online. And they basically said, okay, that's easy, just type your phone number here, get an SMS, and we get you online. And I don't have coverage in India, I didn't have back in the day. So the Russians solved it. You can see it in the screenshot right here. So in Moscow airport, allegedly, you can opt to not give your phone number. You can click other, and then basically all I need is your selfie and a photo of your passport. Which is not the correct way to do it, of course. Now, one of the stories from Latvia. A couple years ago, the police announced a cool new tech. So we have these vans, you can see the silver van in there, and it has a bunch of cameras, 360 degrees. It is supposed to drive around the city and automatically register all kinds of offenses. Red lights, not using turn signals, not using your seatbelt, being on the phone while driving, and so on, and automatically issue those tickets digitally. Now, one part of the thing here is that it's not automatic. We've seen how it works in reality. Now we've had a couple of years. The van is usually just parked somewhere, and it's usually just creates like a suspicion list, and then a human operator has to go through it. So it's not really automatic. But that's not the problem. And actually, traffic safety is good. But I do like the humor that these guys had, right? When creating the car. I think this is amazing. I guess BB was taken, so they went for GC, which is a police one. Orwell would be really proud of this move right here. Now, back to Asia now. And let's talk about kids for a sec, or actually for like 10 minutes. So there was a tweet from People's Daily China, which is, I think, a newspaper, some kind of media. And it said, what else can surveillance cameras do in the classroom other than exam supervision? High school in some place in China uses camera to identify students' facial expressions for class performance analysis and improvements. Like, can it get any worse? Yeah, of course it can. A year later, brain scans in classrooms. Let's take a look at a short video.
红色是表示你的专注力显示得很高，
Teachers at this primary school in China
蓝色是走神了，
know exactly when someone isn't paying attention.
白色就是你可能跟网络还没有连接好。
These headbands measure each student's level of concentration. The information is then directly sent to the teacher's computer and to parents. China has big plans to become a global leader in artificial intelligence. It has enabled a cashless economy where people make purchases with their faces. A giant network of surveillance cameras with facial recognition helps police monitor citizens. Meanwhile, some schools offer glimpses of what the future of high-tech education in the country might look like.
做出选择吧 ，Good job。
Classrooms have robots that analyze students' health and engagement levels. Students wear uniforms with chips that track their locations. There are even surveillance cameras that monitor how often students check their phones or yawn during classes. These gadgets have alarmed Chinese netizens.
Now, that's China, that's Asia, right? We're not really affected by that here in North America. Let's talk about North America. Now, there's software that does something similar. Of course, we're not ready for brain scanning our child on a daily basis yet. By the way, similar software is also used in Eastern and Central Canada. Now, I want to go through some important points on how the software works and why it is used. Now, laws used by parents of students who have committed suicides or by parents of children who have been cyberbullied is the reason why many schools choose to deploy software like that. It's not, hey, I sent this email 2 days ago. It's, you just sent this email 3 minutes ago, let's talk. Within 4 minutes of someone sending an email, the troops had already been deployed because the email had some potential threats regarding violence. The new school surveillance technology doesn't turn off when the school day is over. Anything students type in official school email accounts, chats, or documents is monitored 24 hours a day, whether students are in their classrooms or their bedrooms. Tech companies are also working with schools to monitor students' web searches and internet usage, and in some cases, to track what they're doing on social media. This software automatically sends students a scolding email anytime they use a profanity. Some proponents of school monitoring say the technology is part of educating today's students in how to be good digital citizens, meaning that monitoring in school helps train students for constant surveillance after they graduate. Take an adult in the workforce. You can't type anything you want in your work email. It's being looked at. These are words of Bill McCullough, a spokesperson for the company. He continued, "We are preparing kids to become successful adults." Now, ACLU expert Marlowe said, "Schools don't post on a bulletin board outside the principal's office, 'Here are the words we are searching for.' It forces students to be careful. They might not write about things or talk about things that are not, in fact, being monitored." The idea that everything students are searching for or everything that they are writing down is going to be monitored by their school can really inhibit self-growth and self-discovery. These are words by Natasha Duarte, a policy analyst at the Center for Democracy and Technology. In the United Kingdom, school surveillance technology has already been tested for use in counterterrorism efforts. Now, the ACLU expert Marlowe continues, "It's certainly fair to ask to what extent we feel comfortable with technologies first developed for use in war being used against our children." Now, let's take a moment to talk about the company name. GAG, verb, to prevent from exercising freedom of speech or expression. And I think it really depicts and describes the non-consensual nature of the interaction between a modern student and a modern school. Now, continuing on about what's happening in the US, there are privacy laws coming out in many US states with fines up to $7,500. In California, which is the largest fine, up to $20,000, which is kind of funny, right? It's a fine for a company, right? Let's say a large multi-billion-dollar company does something wrong, and that's the fine. In Europe, the fines are much larger. Right? I think it's up to 6% or maybe 10% of the yearly revenue of the company. That's the fine, that's the cap of the fine on privacy violations. But what's good in the US, I think, is that Californian law also requires companies to register as data brokers. It's a very progressive idea. Now you can see who is who and who does what. For example, you can type in your mobile operator and it's there. It's a data broker. Wonder why. We don't have that in Europe, but I think that's a really good idea. Now, EU, I think, was always really progressive in the way of privacy, and I've always looked at it, to the place I live, as the last bastion of privacy. Now, I think it has fallen. On-device scanning is, of course, a discussion that those of you that are interested in privacy have been looking at online for the past couple of years. And I think EU has fallen really low here. When the European Commission, and many of you are not from EU here, so I'm going to tell you briefly how EU works. European Commission is like clerks that are hired to implement policy that is decided by politicians from all over EU, right? So those are clerks. And the policy decisions that they have to implement should come from the politicians. Now, European Commission noticed on September 14th that there is insufficient support in the Council of the European Union, where some of the politicians vote on different things. And they decided a day later to create a paid advertising campaign on X, Twitter at that time, for the countries where they knew the countries were going to vote against the proposal. Actually, EU has fallen really, really low, because if you look at transparency report by X, you can see that European Commission, which is one of the bodies that helped create GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation in Europe, they use targeting to not only target specific groups, specific countries, and specific interests in privacy, but also to exclude people who they suspect would not be convinced by their ad, and try to sway not only public opinion in specific countries, but the public policy of the whole European Union. Let's talk about the end of end-to-end encryption. I'm going to start with a short story of how we got here. Maybe some of you have been interested in privacy only for a year. Maybe some of you, hopefully, will start to be interested today. But the crypto wars 3.0, how some call them, have been around for a while. Now, US Attorney General William Barr at the time called what we have on our phones like Signal and WhatsApp warrant-proof encryption, meaning encryption that is impervious to court warrants. Now, GCHQ has suggested that tech firms' communication services should be able to surreptitiously add intelligence agencies to conversations or group chats. And that's one of the ways to realize breaking encryption, right? You can just add someone silently to a group chat or one-on-one conversation with a third party, and your phone will do all the encryption for them as well. Now, Jim Baker, FBI's general counsel at the time, had a change of heart. He said, no, maybe it's not such a good idea to backdoor encryption. Is it because of this? Probably not. These are old news that resurfaced a couple years ago. It's Operation Rubicon, also known as Operation Cesarus. How many of you have heard of the operation? One, two, okay. 2 people. So there's a company called Crypto.ag, and it has been owned, like meaning hacked, by the Germans and Americans that have been backdooring stuff there for decades. And Crypto.ag, as the name says, works with creating cryptography tools for the governments. Speaking of encryption, TrueCrypt reports have been published a while ago. You remember TrueCrypt, right? It suddenly disappeared, stating that we're insecure, use BitLocker. That was the message on their webpage. Now, the reports have been published. German intelligence agency BSI did the reports, so there was nothing bad in there. Personally, I still use TrueCrypt. I looked at the vulnerabilities and the diffs between the current version of Vercrypt and TrueCrypt, and I see that in my case they don't apply, so I'd rather, the disappearance of TrueCrypt was a bit shady. I have to take a detour here on that previous slide. So if we zoom in and we look at an article talking about encryption, security, and privacy, it says in German, of course, that you need to enable JavaScript to read the article. I mean, they can display the article header, but not the whole article. I don't know why. Okay, sorry about that. Let's continue. Our UK government has been playing a game of chicken regarding end-to-end encryption, right? They try to pass some laws, then the companies threaten they're going to leave, and it is hard for any developed country to explain to their citizens why there's no Facebook in the country anymore. Even though I would support that for privacy reasons, but I guess majority of the people anywhere would not. Now, finally, UK passed the legislation really recently. And interestingly, it does not ban end-to-end encryption. The law that they passed contains a provision that could require messaging platforms to use accredited technology to identify particular kinds of content if they receive a notice to do so by the national operator for the digital communications in UK. In order to issue such notice, the operator needs to find it necessary and proportionate, and the technology itself must first be accredited. And no accredited technology currently exists. So we're not there yet, but what the bill is actually talking about is, of course, on-device scanning, not breaking encryption per se, which is also not a good idea, I think. So another a bit of bad news. The commercial spies and government spies have finally found a connection, and they're working together. So the government is exploiting the commercial data hoarding for their own benefit and trying to get the data on all of us. Now, if you're interested in what the spy agencies are thinking or maybe planning regarding interception of encrypted communication and accessing that, GHCQ actually published a publicly available research paper on specifically that topic. You can use any of the two links here to access that and take a look if you're interested. Now, I want to talk about web browsing. Web browsing is what we do all the time. When flying in here, I was trying to take a look at some investment prospect, and of course I clicked, I want to adjust my cookies, and I got this text, right? Google Analytics, used for cookie control. And you cannot click out of it. I guess they really are used for cookie control. And here's a site that some of us use to order electronic components, and it has a really interesting text over there. So it basically says, it appears you have JavaScript disabled. Some functions may not work, which is fine. JavaScript is needed for some functions. But some functions may not work unless you log in, and then they will work again. So are they basically admitting here we need a way to track you, either login or use JavaScript? Now, web browsing, at least in Europe, has become really terrible these years. Anything you open, you're presented with a bunch of pop-ups and legal documents, and you can't browse the web without a lawyer present. It's really hard these days. And if you look at the space where you see the actual article in this picture, this screenshot, for example, there's nothing, right? I think there are like 5 or 6 words from the title, and that's it. That's the amount of article you see unless you deal with all this crap. And it's not a single case. It's happening everywhere. And my favorite one is from Forbes. Here, basically, you know, and you open it up and you scroll and you scroll and you scroll, and you read, and then you can have to press I agree and continue to the site, right? Or you can press back to all options and pay them some money, right? Those are your options there. Now, by the way, the interesting fact is that according to European law, it is not true that you're required to do that crap. You're not even required to inform about cookies unless you plan on doing something shady with your customer data. You don't need all that pop-ups, right? So that didn't work. Now, I had to talk about the modern web for a bit. Now, let's talk about encryption. Let's use WhatsApp as an example. Many of you probably use WhatsApp because you know there are those people that don't use anything else, and then you have to have WhatsApp to talk to them. At least it's better than SMS. Well, it's true. Now, let's say WhatsApp decided, theoretically, to do something shady and start adding third parties to your private conversations. Now, one way you could stop it is by rooting your phone, because if your phone is rooted, then you can install alternative hacked apps that maybe do something else than the official app, right? But rooting phones, if you're going to use WhatsApp on them, has been disallowed by the terms of service for really long. And it also applies to iPhones as well, even more importantly, in my opinion, because of how iPhones are set up. Okay, if I can't root my phone to take a look at what exactly is happening in the background, what data is being transferred, what about third-party apps? No. WhatsApp is against that as well. Not allowed. Oh, really sad. Third-party apps could also help you with working around glitches. A couple years ago, this is how I used to have to start a new chat in WhatsApp without giving Facebook access to my address book. So basically, I would take my phone, I would open up the phone dialer, and in the phone dialer I would dial the phone number I want to chat with. Then I would call them, press the green button, then would immediately cancel the call because I don't actually want to call them. I want to chat with them on WhatsApp. Then I go to my recents, and I press on I. And when I open up this here, then I try to call them again, but I hold it and I go to call via WhatsApp. Then I hang up again because I don't want to call, I want to chat with them. Then I have it in my recents in WhatsApp. Then I go to recents, then I press there, and then I press chat. And I'm able to chat. Literally, this is how it worked forever. And it did work. That's how it worked. Luckily, I think about 1.5 years ago, they fixed it. Now you can just press new chat, enter a number. You have a warning on screen as usual, but it's much easier. Now, what about some other apps? Here's an app called Socratic. We don't use it in Europe, but I hear that it's popular in North America. So apparently, it's used for pupils to do homeworks and stuff, right? So what it says here is basically, hey, Socratic would like you to give access to contacts. And on Apple ecosystem, what the developer can do, they can only change the small text below. They can't affect anything else in these dialogues. So the developer of this app has added, it's only for chatting about homework, don't worry. Right, okay, so if it's only for chatting about homework, don't allow. Governments need to ban apps refusing to work when not granted unreasonable permissions. They really need to do something like that. Now, similar thing on Bolt, which is Uber alternative back in Europe, here is Yandex Taxi, which is different alternatives. So basically, I have no taxi alternatives left. Uber works for me because I don't travel using it often, only some countries outside of EU, but in EU, nothing works for me. This is a funny story right here. So Yandex Taxi was the only app that I had left that could work, and I had to go work in Ukraine before the war for a couple weeks, and I installed the app. I entered, of course, fake data. I paid cash. I left 5-star rating when going to the airport in Riga. I saw the driver leave 5-star rating to me. I turned off my phone because I'm going to Ukraine, and I came back 2 weeks later. Turned on my phone. Now I'm going to travel back to my apartment from the airport. Got this message. I don't know what happened. Maybe they didn't enjoy not having any reasonable data on me because I just want to use the service and pay for it. Now let's look at another important aspect of everyday's lives: watching pornography online. People of Australia did not stand for the idea, even though the idea was quite admirable, but it didn't pan out. But we're not in the clear yet. I think UK is also looking at some ways to identify people, and I think having your camera on so they can see your face and judge how old are you by your facial features is one way to do it, I guess. Okay, let's make it real. These days, not having a phone number is being treated like a disease, or at the very least, a disability. I tried looking up when did I start getting serious about privacy. Now here's an invitation to Riga Food 2004. That's the first example that I found in my archives back home. It's earlier than I thought. So what I did is I typed in a completely fake address, Brevibs 20. Maybe I think it doesn't even exist, that house number on the street, and I typed a dash in the phone number. Right? It was before the digital times, but still, I was a rebel back then as well. Now, some could say that I'm just unlucky when using digital systems. Really, really unlucky. My customers. Some of my customers require me to have these certificates here, don't judge. One thing that you need to do to get certificates is you need to have your photo of your face taken. I'm not sure why, but it's an American company behind that, so I don't expect a clear answer on that. But what I can do, since I'm in Europe and I do operate in Europe, working with European citizens like me, I can request the photo of my face to be deleted afterwards. So every time I take an exam, and they take a photo, I ask the photo to be deleted. And every time there is some kind of trouble. Now, last time what happened is, basically, when they were trying to delete my photo, they accidentally deleted everything about me from the system, and my certificates became invalid, which was unfortunate for both parties involved, I believe. I had to get new certificates with new verification numbers. I had to change it everywhere in all the company documents. Luckily, I did get, I think, free couple years of free certification out of it as a compensation. Now, one of the reasons why I originally got into privacy was spam. I hate spam because it diverts attention from what I have to do. And spam filters, I haven't seen a good spam filter. Some people may stand up and say, hey, Google, Gmail is perfect. Well, it's not, because you have a bunch of legitimate emails ending up in your spam folder, right? It's how it works. You decide where you draw the line. And I draw the line on the other side. I try to use less spam filters, and so I get lots of spam. Now, one day I got a spam SMS, which is unusual for me because I don't use a phone number. I don't publish it anywhere. No one knows it, not even my closest friends and family. They use apps to communicate with me. So I got this SMS. The SMS says, hello, unfortunately your application for a credit line has been denied. Credit on .lv. I said, oh, well, never had a credit in my life at that time. So what I did what any reasonable person would do. I tried to call them on the phone number on the webpage. Didn't connect. Later on, couple months later, I learned that they are not patching through calls from a clear number from a filtered number. So if you have an unknown number, then it will not patch it through. But they do not mention it on the webpage at all. Anyway, so what I did is, of course, I jumped on my motorbike and I drove to their office. I had a nice chat with them, showed them the SMS, told them the number it came to, and they assured me it was not them. I work in IT. I know how easy it is to spoof a number or even alphanumeric sender. So I apologized and I said, okay, no problem. I went away. A week later, SMS from the same alphanumeric originator, Credit.lv. You can win €50 gift card if you log into Credit on LV on your profile and update your information. So I did what any normal person would do. I tried to call them up. Didn't connect. So I jumped on my motorbike. I went there. It was 9 p.m. and their website said it works until 10 p.m. 9 p.m. I'm there. It's closed. I see people inside. They're not opening the goddamn door. So I thought, oh, those bastards. So what I did, when driving back home, I decided, okay, let's play the game more seriously. So I drove to a gas station and I filled up my motorbike by just a bit of gas. And I got the receipt, because damages. Then next day I tried again. I came in a bit earlier and I said, yeah, the hours on the webpage are for the phone number, not for the office. Yeah, but your phone number doesn't work. So anyway, we had a chat, and once again, they looked at my phone number that I sent this to, ran away into back end with the phone number, and the guy came back with my phone number in hand and said, yeah, sorry, it was us. So I asked for more explanation, and he said, well, someone registered using your phone number. I said, okay, don't you guys verify the phone number? And they said, yeah, we do, but only if credit gets approved. Your credit was denied, so we didn't have to verify the phone number at all. I said, well, that's unfortunate. I'd like compensation for the previous ride and this ride, please. And it was I think, 2.5 euros, so 3 Canadian for the gas. I live nearby, it's a small city. And they said, well, send it in by post or email or whatever, and we'll go and take a look at it. So I did. And they never answered. 2 months later, I take a look at my account, and I see the money. And the thing is, similarly to a phone number, I also tell companies I don't use banks. Because in Europe, there is, I think maybe it's a global thing, but at least in Europe, there is a thing called direct debit. Basically, if you know someone's name and surname and account number, bank account number, you can just charge their account. You just start taking money off the account. It's for ease of use or whatever. Crazy stuff. So, which is why I don't share my accounts. So in my email to them, asking to reimburse my 3 Canadian or 2.5 euros, I told them, I don't have an account, please do cash or check. 2 months later, I have money in one of my accounts. To this day, I'm still too afraid to ask them how that happened. But I have a message to you from the banking sector. Okay, so speaking of banks, I use these prepaid cards. I think you also have some prepaid cards. You can buy them at Walmart. Quite a nice thing. You can actually function in the society if you don't want to use real cards that have your name on it and get tracked. It is a bit problematic though, because they don't have a name on them. So when in this case, this is what's the pork bun, the domain thing. If it asks for name on card and you leave it blank, it says nope. And it also gives some information about data structure in there, so vulnerability as well. These days, I can't work on a bus. I can't work on a train because I cannot work with customer data with all the cameras around. And I can't type my passwords with all the cameras around. Now, these days, basically airplanes are the only safe-ish place to work because there's max one camera in the publicly accessible area for now. How many of you have used this device? Half. More than half. Okay. I've never used one of these. I hope I get out of Canada without having to use it, because getting into Canada was a pain. So there are different problems with these devices. Some people say that they don't want to use it because of radiation, micro-radiation. It gets under your skin and it may cause cancer. Not enough research on that. Well, maybe. But my problem is that I used to be a programmer between when I was 7 years old and 16 years old, and I know how programmers create code, and I don't trust them. There's some artificial intelligence in there taking decision about you in a non-transparent way, which means that in all likelihood you will still go to manual. So I usually just request to go to manual directly. By the way, do you remember the story how these were deployed first? So the first iteration of these was because the machine can actually see your body without clothing. That's how the microwave backscatter radiation technology works. And there was a room somewhere else in the airport where a person was looking at you naked and pressing a button that light up a light on the device informing the operator near the machine if you're okay or not. That didn't fly with people, even in the US. So the new version works like that. The operator chooses your assumed gender when you walk to the machine, male or female. You have two options. And then it just shows your silhouette, not your silhouette, a silhouette of a male or a female with red rectangles around the silhouette where something doesn't match. So imagine how hard it is to use these machines for people where appeared gender does not match their sex, or the other way around, or people that had, let's say, removal of breasts. Yeah? I think it's traumatizing. Now, I want to touch on Latvia for a bit. And we do have passports, and of course they have fingerprints in them, biometric passports, because air travel organizations decided that we should have them. So when it came out, I thought, okay, fingerprints is quite a secure technology, if you may even call it that. I wonder if my government is doing everything they should correctly with my passport and my fingerprints. So I asked them, so what's up? Why do you want my fingerprints now? And they said, we only store fingerprints in your passport. So it's only on the chip in the passport. We do not have a database. And I said, okay, that seems nice. Can I see some? I requested. I used the law to request some more public information about that. And then they said, well, actually we also store a hash of the fingerprint in the database. And this answer came really slowly. It took like 2 months for them to answer, even though the legal limit is 1 month. And while they were writing the answer, they actually amended the law to allow for that to happen. So I said, okay, you store a hash in database. That's great, let's see it. I got these files. WSQ, FBI is developed by the FBI of the USNA, US of A, wavelet scalar quantization algorithm, right? And it says in Latvian, left one of the fingers and write one of the fingers. So I looked and looked, and I found a tool that could open these. Whole damn fingerprint in there. It's a picture. It's a grayscale picture of each of the fingers. Yeah, and I found one tool on the whole internet back then that actually can read the files if you want to take a look at them. That's a tool. Maybe it's still there. So that's unfortunate. Now, we need security for air travel. We need passports. And, of course, we need to have the boarding pass. Don't scan that. Boarding passes are cool, except totally insecure, except USA, where they actually have some kind of checksum, some hash, or something like that in the end. But shopping is hell. They always want to scan your boarding pass, and they can never answer the question, what are you going to do with my frequent flyer number or my travel class or my seat number? But still, they scan the whole barcode. So it's really, really annoying, and I'm currently fighting that battle. There's this Heinemann, I think, is the global chain in European Union and a bit around the world, and I'm currently in a battle with them about if they really need to scan that, because some countries would allow you to type it in manually. The operator does, because they do need your name and flight number for tax purposes, right? But everything else, no. So we'll see how that goes. Let's summarize what we have here today. Now, user demand for privacy are marked with a frowning smiley, because no one gives a crap, right? I see people walking out right now. Cookie law in the EU, it's average, because even though it was meant as a good idea to try and make sure that companies, inform users in those edge cases where they are actually trying to do something suspicious, something unconventional with user data, what we have is banners everywhere, on every web page. Hey, we use cookies. GDPR for big data, I also marked as a frowny face, because big companies have enough money to either hire lawyers to work around the limitations, or they have enough money to pay the fines, which I hopefully will change soon enough. Now, GDPR for smaller companies is good. Those guys are afraid of that. As soon as you bring a case using GDPR against them, they do everything correctly. And unfortunately, these three things are EU only, so you don't get the benefit of that. Surveillance technologies are great, which is also why I marked it with frowny face, right? We have dedicated surveillance technologies, and we have governments using commercial surveillance to access the data now as well. Encryption, yeah, it's good. We're working on post-quantum encryption. We're working on improving different kinds of encryption that we have right now. But the question is, how can end user be sure that encryption is being applied correctly or is being applied at all? That's a question that no one is solving, and that has not been solved as of now, I think. So that's a sad smiley altogether. Privacy, and indeed human rights, are a recently invented concept. They've been among us for 100, maybe 200 years, which is why, at least in my eyes, it's even more deplorable to see corporations and governments alike hastily eating away at our right to privacy for their own benefit. Privacy should not be a luxury that only the rich and powerful can afford. Privacy is for everyone. Privacy is a fundamental right. And like with all fundamental rights, any encroachment on them needs to be aggressively and decisively terminated. Thank you so much.